पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी विष्णु भानु सुत देवे प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we were discussing the third chapter, Karma Yoga, and I believe we completed until verse number 20. We have to start from verse 21, if I'm not wrong. So I'll share my screen and we all can recite the verse. Okay. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, let's recite this verse. Yad yad acharti shreshthas
यत् यत् आचरति श्रेष्ठः
tad tad evetaro janaha
तत्तद् एव तरो जनः
sa yat parmanam kurute
यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते
lokastad anuvartate.
लोकस्तदनुवर्तते
Yad yad acharti shreshthas
यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठः
tad tad evetaro janaha
तत्तद् एवेतरो जनः
sa yat pramanam kurute
स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते
lokastad anuvartate.
लोकस्तदनुवर्तते
Yad yad acharti shreshthas
यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठः
tad tad evetaro janaha
तत्तद् एवेतरो जनः
sa yat pramanam kurute
स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते
lokastad anuvartate.
लोकस्तदनुवर्तते
When I would like to recite.
यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठः
Yad yad acharti shreshthas
तत्तद् एवेतरो जनः
tad tad evetaro janaha
स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते
sa yat pramanam kurute
लोकस्तदनुवर्तते
lokastad anuvartate.
Yad yad acharati shreshthas
Yad yad
यद् यद्
acharti
आचरति
shreshthas
श्रेष्ठः
tad evitaro janaha
tad tad
तत्तद्
evetaro
एवेतरो
janaha
जनः
shayat pramamanam kurute
sa yat pramanam
प्रमाणं
kurute
कुरुते
lokastad anuvartate.
lokastad anuvartate.
लोकस्तदनुवर्तते
Yad yad acharati shreshtas
Yad yad acharti shreshthas
श्रेष्ठः
tat tat evetaro janaha
tad tad evetaro
एवेतरो
janaha
जनः
sa yat parmanam kurute
sa yat pramanam kurute
कुरुते
lokastad anuvartate.
lokastad anuvartate.
यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः
Yad yad acharti
आचरति
shreshthas
श्रेष्ठः
तत्तदेवेतरो जनः
tad tad evetaro janaha
स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते
sa yat pramanam kurute
लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते
lokastad anuvartate. Anyone else? Okay, let's recite the synonyms. Yat yat,
Yat yat
यत् यत्
whatever.
whatever
Acharti,
आचरति
चरति
he does.
he does
Shresthaha,
श्रेष्ठः
a respectable leader.
a respectable leader
Tat,
Tat
that.
that
Tat,
that
and that alone.
and that alone,
eva,
Eva.
Eva.
certainly,
certainly,
Certainly.
itaraha,
Itaraha.
Itaraha.
itaraha,
common,
Common.
Common.
janaha,
Janaha.
person,
person,
Person.
saha,
Saha.
Saha.
he,
He.
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 yat,
Yat.
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 whichever,
Whichever.
Ever.
pramanam,
Pramanam.
pramanam,
example,
Example.
Example.
kurute,
Kurute.
kurute,
does perform,
Does
does
perform.
perform,
Form.
lokaha,
Lokaha.
Lokaha.
all the world,
All the
world.
world.
The work.
tat,
Tat.
Tat.
That.
that,
That.
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 anuvartate,
Anuvartate.
follows in the footsteps.
Follows
Follows in the
Follows in the
footsteps.
footsteps.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he set by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called Acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard Shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king or the executive head of a state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. I'll read the translation one more time. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So it's a very, very important verse of the Bhagavad Gita. And we can literally discuss this one verse for a year and still won't be enough. So we know that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is such an excellent orator that there is a lot of things to learn from the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, sometimes people ask this question that what are the top 10 teachings from the Gita? To condense the teachings of Bhagavad Gita into just top 10 is, it will probably not do justice to the teachings of the Gita. Of course, we can do it, but we'll miss out on a lot of other very important things which are very practical and very important. So generally when people talk about top 10 or top 20 or whatever, generally I have not seen so much that this verse comes there in the Gita, but this verse is also very, very relevant for all of us in the whatever capacity we may be. We may say that, okay, we are not leaders, but Prabhupada makes it very clear that even a parent, father, teacher, so they also have to set examples, and in a certain way we all set examples, we don't know how we are setting the example, and we don't know how many times we set the wrong example. So at least if we cannot set a good example, we should be very careful of not setting a wrong example, and we'll talk more about it. But I was talking about how Krishna is such an excellent orator. He completely turns the table on Arjuna. So actually, if you remember how this description come up, this is a series of verses where Krishna, basically how he leads Arjuna to this discussion. So we know that, this chapter started by a question from Arjuna. So he basically wanted to know, should I take renunciation or should I actually fight? That was his question initially. I'm just simplifying the question. It was not that simple. So, but for our understanding purposes. So actually Krishna starts comparing the two paths. He starts comparing activity and renunciation. That's how he starts. And then in the verse 3.9, he gives the very important principle of work done as a sacrifice. Anyone remembers what that verse is? What that verse is? Okay, 3.9 यज्ञार्थार्थ कर्मणो न्यत्र लोकोयम कर्म बंधनै तद अर्थम कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्त संग samachara. He says actually, oh Arjuna, the work must be done as a sacrifice to Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. So we know that Krishna is teaching the art of work to Arjuna. That's how he, so he first gives the principle of, karma yagya. So we know the drava yagya, or we know the general yagya, where we offer drava yagya. Drava means matter, material. We offer different kinds of materials in fire. So that is drava yagya. That is the most popular kind of yagya that people understand. But there is also something called as karma yagya. Work done as a sacrifice itself has to be performed. That is karma yoga actually. Karma yagya, karma yoga, both are same. So, so he first introduces that concept, but then he says that actually, no, everybody cannot do like this. So people who cannot do like this, then they have to perform sacrifice. Sacrifice in the sense, the drava yagya. One who cannot do karma yoga, they have to come to karma kand level. So in the karma kand level, he starts talking about the different kinds of sacrifices. Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yagya bhavitaha. Tair dattan aparadhebhyo yo bhungte stena evasa. He says actually, Arjuna, people have to do sacrifice, and by doing sacrifice, people can please the demigods, please the devatas, and devatas being pleased by the sacrifices or the different oblations that are offered in the sacrifice, they will actually fulfill your, the needs, the desires of the people in general. And then he also says there that people who don't perform sacrifice, who accept the things offered by nature without giving anything in return, they are actually thief. They are thief, and because they are not giving anything back in in return for those gifts that they are getting from the nature. And then he says not just thief, they are very extremely sinful. So there he talks about eating food as a eating the remnants, the food as which are remnant, that after getting offered in the sacrifice, yagya shishtanai santo muchante sarva kilbishai bhunjate te tu agham papa ye pachantya atmakrit krinat. He says actually people who don't, people who first offer the food in sacrifice and then they eat it, they are free from all kinds of sinful reactions. But people who eat for their own sense enjoyment, they are eating a plate full of sin. That's how Krishna puts it. So one may think that no, it's not that I am actually not giving anything in return. I work hard to get my food. It is such a, I have to just burn my blood. I have to give up so much energy to get my food for me and my family. So we have to understand that our effort, our work that we do to obtain the food, that is secondary. But the primary, our work doesn't produce the food. By our work we can obtain the food, like just as birds. The birds in the morning, they all wake up and then they do so much hard work to get their food, and they first get it for themselves and even for their children. But the effort done by the birds does not produce the food. The food is produced by nature, and behind the nature is the universal system. The it's like a, it's like a universal system of cooperation. So cooperation between man and the devatas. So that's how the nature produces food, and behind the nature are the demigods. So, and then Krishna talks about that how the food is produced. He says, Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhavaha. Yagyat bhavanti parjanyo yagyaha karma samudbhavaha. The anna is produced by rains, and the rains are produced by offering of sacrifices. And the sacrifices is born of prescribed duties. So that's how Krishna puts it. So he says that actually sacrifice is very, very important. So here, of course, in this section, Krishna is talking about karma kand. People who are doing karma kand, it is very important for them to do sacrifices. So we will see that in the third chapter is very systematic, but third chapter is not linear actually. So we understand that Krishna talks about karma yoga, he talks about karma kand, he talks about jnana yoga. He also he give hints of bhakti also, but he doesn't talk in a sequential way. He keeps going back and forth between the various things. So Krishna first started in 3.9 with karma yoga. Then in these few verses that we are discussing right now, he actually talked about karma kand. And then he says that people who don't actually the standard of karma kand, they are even below that. Below that is vikarma. Vikarma is sinful activity. So actually they are incurring sins. So now we may think that, okay, by doing karma kand, what is the benefit? It is just like a give and take between the man and demigods. So actually, no. Krishna also clarifies that. He clarifies that in 3.15, Tasmat sarvagatah brahma nityam yagya pratishtham. He says that actually the prescribed duties are mentioned in the scriptures, and scriptures are are born out of the supreme personality, the supreme transcendence himself. And therefore the sacrifices are also recommended in the scriptures, and therefore tasmat sarvagatam brahma, that all pervading transcendence gets situated in the act of sacrifice. So when the all pervading transcendence that gets situated in the sacrifice and the acts of sacrifice, so what happens is gradually when people are doing this kind of sacrifice, gradually they are elevated, their consciousness is elevated. So gradually they become purified of their desires, and then gradually they can rise towards karma yoga. That's how it is mentioned here in the third chapter. And then Krishna also talks about that actually who doesn't do like this, what happens to them? Aghayur indriya ramo, people who are working just to satisfy their senses. Aghayur means their life is filled with sins. And indriya ramo, we have atmaram is used for Krishna. Atmaram means one who is self-satisfied. So Indriya Rama is used in that context. Indriya Rama is one who is not self-satisfied, who is satisfied, whose life is dedicated to satisfy the senses. Mogham Parth Sajivati. He lives in vain. Why lives in vain? Because ultimately there is nothing that he will achieve in this life. Human life is such an important life. It is like a junction. Junction in the sense you can go everywhere. In India we have different train stations which are called as junction. So I never understood what does junction mean. Junction actually means you can catch trains going to different directions of India. So those are actually junctions. So like that, human life is also a junction. Junction in the sense you can go up, you can go down, you can stay where you are, or you can transcend, you can get out also. So that's how human life is. It's very important. But people who just live for sense gratification, they live in vain. That's how Krishna puts it in 3.16. Then he continues that theme. So after talking about this karma kand, that how karma kand is important for people who cannot do karma yoga, and he also talks about that people who do not do karma kand, what actually happens to them. He then talks about who is qualified to do jnana yoga. So that section starts, there are two verses actually. That section starts 3.17. He talks about it. Yastva atmaratir eva syad atma triptascha manava. One who is self-satisfied, one whose life is dedicated for self-realization. Such a person has no duty towards anyone. So the idea is that because he has renounced the word, and just not just the word, he has renounced desires also. So because he is not taking anything from anyone, he is not obligated to give anything in return. So only such a person is actually qualified to do Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means sannyas. So we have already discussed that there are certain words that Krishna uses interchangeably. So Sankhya, Sannyas, Jnana Yoga, these are all meaning the same thing as in the terms of Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna uses them interchangeably actually. So But then Krishna is such an excellent speaker. He says that, such a person doesn't have anything to do. He has no duties to perform. So therefore, there is no work recommended for him. But then he also says that, there is no reason for him to not do work also. Naiva tasya kritanartho na kartaneha kaschana. No, there is no duty recommended for him, but then there is no reason for him to not do work. So that's how Krishna puts it. So this is like a checkmate to Arjuna. Checkmate in the sense that Arjuna is arguing that I should not fight, because Arjuna's, at least he is thinking prematurely, artificially is thinking that I am qualified to take sannyas. I am qualified to do Jnana Yoga. So Krishna says that actually to Arjuna, he is saying indirectly that in my opinion, you are not qualified. You should do Karma Yoga. You should act without attachment. You should act with detachment. But even if you think that you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, still you should perform your duty, because there is no reason for a person to not do his duty. He should still do his duty. Now one may ask, why should he do that duty? So he actually talks about in 3.20, he gives an example. So Arjuna's idea is that, if you are attached, then you do your work. If you're detached, then you should not do your work. Then you can renounce actually. So where is an example of such a person who is detached and still he is doing his work? So Krishna says actually there's a lot of examples like that. He says karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astitah janak adayah. Janak, he gives the example of Janak, and not just Janak, he says Janak adayah, Janak and other kings. And why did they do work? And although they were such a self-realized souls, and for them there was no duty to be performed. So why did they do this? He says, Loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartum arhasi, for the purpose of teaching others. So Arjuna, you should also do your duty for the purpose of teaching others. So it is, Krishna is putting, for whatever level you can think that, okay, first you think that, okay, you should do your duty, then you should fight. Even if you think that you should not do, you are renounced, you are qualified to renounce, still you should do your duty for the purpose of teaching others. That's how Krishna is putting it now. And in that same sequence, this 3.21 verse comes, whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So Krishna is telling to Arjuna that Arjuna, you are a leader in this world. You are not an ordinary person. You are a Kshatriya, and not just Kshatriya, you are the greatest of the fighters. Arjuna is not an ordinary fighter. It is well known that nobody can defeat Arjuna except maybe Drona and Bhishma. And Arjuna has so far not lost even one battle. Whatever battles he have fought, he have always either won it or he has equaled it. There was no question of losing any battle. So Arjuna is really famous. So he is definitely a leader for the society. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, that because you are talking about giving up your duty, people will follow your example. You are such a young person, you are a leader. Whenever a person will have to run away from their duty, they will take your example and they will run away from their duty. So therefore, you should set a standard by doing exemplary acts, so that the world can pursue your example. So he had given the example of Janaka first, and then he's telling the principle here that, whatever action a great man performs, common men follow that. So Prabhupada gives a amazing purport here. He says, people in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. So we know that we always need some guidance. We can never live without guidance. We seek guidance inherently. It's not that it is artificial to us. It is very natural that we see. Kids, they just look at their parents and they learn. And we can understand this, that the way they pick up language, even when they're babies, they start speaking automatically. It's not that I sat down with my kids and started teaching them grammar of the language. Somehow they picked up the language. How did they pick it up? Because how they used to see us speaking. Or even if they don't see us, they would see TV. From TV, they will pick up the language. So there are many ways in which they learn. So people also, they look at others and then they try to follow that example. So a leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. So this is very important. If I want someone to do something, and if I'm telling him to do it, I should first do it myself. I cannot say that when I'm smoking, smoking is bad for health, you should not smoke, and I'm smoking at the same time. That's not going to work. And then Prabhupada talks about Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. So actually here, we have to understand when Prabhupada is talking about Lord Chaitanya, it applies to preachers. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing, he was preaching actually. So a preacher who is preaching about Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, he has to be, he should have a very ideal behavior. If his behavior is not good, nobody is going to listen to him. At the same time, he is going to bring bad press for Krishna consciousness. People will think that these Vaishnavas, they are just in the name of bhakti, they are doing all sorts of nonsense things. There is this example where I forgot the devotee's name. This comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya, he was very merciful upon a boy. He was talking to the boy a lot, and he was trying to make him comfortable, and this devotee was seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was noticing it. So he actually, what the backstory is that this boy was a son of a widow, and in the if you understand, in the earlier days in the Vedic context, if a man has to propose to a widow, then he can be nice to the children. If a man is nice to the children, it is kind of understood that he's indirectly proposing the widow, that I can take care of your children, so you can actually marry me. That's how it is understood in the Vedic context. So this devotee was noticing, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had no such intention. He was just naturally merciful to everyone, and he possibly didn't even know that this boy is a son of a widow. So this devotee, I'm missing the name of the devotee, he told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he should just keep some distance with this boy. And then
Damodar Pandit Prabhuji.
I'm sorry?
Damodar Pandit.
Damodar Pandit, yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. So he said that actually, this boy is a son of a widow. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't feel anything bad about it. He understood it. And then, this description doesn't come again that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to this boy or didn't speak to this boy. So that discussion itself doesn't come. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was very careful. Once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, what is that? The song of the blue god, what is the
Geet Govinda.
Geeta Govinda? Thank you, Mataji. So Geeta Govinda, Mataji was singing Geeta Govinda. It was so melodious, so nice that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard it, he was so mesmerized that he started running towards there, and then his intention was that, he's going just hug the devotee. He didn't, comprehend that it's a woman. So there was another devotee, he just ran towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he grabbed him literally and said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's a woman. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just jolted out of his ecstasy. And then he said, thank you so much. You saved my life today. If I would have touched a woman, I would have given up my life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was, he was following ideal behavior of a sannyasi. So he didn't just take sannyas like that. He was following, although he is Supreme Personality himself, he's not an ordinary preacher or ordinary sannyasi. Of course, sannyasis are not ordinary, but I am just saying that within the sannyasi cadre, he was not an ordinary sannyasi. He was Supreme Personality. There is nothing that he cannot do. Krishna will say that later in the same series that, there is no work prescribed for me, nor am I bound to do anything. Yet I am doing my duty. That's how Krishna will put it. So therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra. So actually then he says, one who teaches in that way is called an Acharya. So an Acharya is a person who teaches by his own example. That's actually definition of Acharya. So if Acharya is not himself setting the standard, then he cannot be called as Acharya. Prabhupada also did that many times. There was this time when at Prayag, there was Kumbh Mela. And Prabhupada noticed that in the morning, devotees were not coming for Mangal Aarti. And then he asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others, why are devotees not coming for Mangal Aarti? He said, Prabhupada, it's so cold, and the water is so cold actually. They just don't want to take bath in such a cold water. And they're not coming because they have not taken a bath. They are not coming for Mangal Aarti. So next day morning, Prabhupada himself got up and then he sat down below the tap, cold water right from the tap. He took bath. And when everybody saw it, and that this is the time when it was 1976 and 77, Prabhupada's health was not that great at that time. And when everybody saw it, then everybody next day morning onwards, everybody used to come for Mangal Aarti. They used to take their bath and everything. So Prabhupada himself was a great acharya. He used to teach by his own example. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. So first, the teacher himself has to follow the scriptures, and then when he is following the scriptures, other people will automatically notice that this person is living Bhagavad Gita. He is living a Bhagavatam. Prabhupada talks about, there is a person Bhagavatam and there is a book Bhagavatam. So person Bhagavatam means one who is following what mentioned. So he is a Bhagavat. When you say he's a very exalted devotee, that means he is following the recommendations of the scripture. For us, it is said that for us, the manual for our living is Shiksha Ashtakam, the nectar of instruction. So there, Rupa Goswami talks about a lot of things that we should do and we should not do. So both are important, yama and niyama. So both are important, things that are to be done and things that should not be done actually. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. So this is also very important. You should not, manufacture something which is against the revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Now this Manu Samhita is for human society in general, the Vedic books. Now above the Vedic system is Vaishnav etiquette. Vaishnav etiquette is much higher than the Vedic etiquettes. So from a Vedic perspective, generally it is said that Manu Samhita and Manu Smriti. So these books contain the law codes that how the humans should live. But we see that Vaishnavacharyas don't quote so much. You will not see Prabhupada quoting a lot from Manu Samhita or Manu Smriti. I've hardly seen any quotes coming from Srila Prabhupada in his purports. And even from others acharyas. So there are two reasons. One, as I was saying, that there is a difference between the codes of living for general human beings and for bhaktas, for devotees. The second is, it is a very well known fact that Manu Samhita and Manu Smriti have been heavily interpolated. All the important things which are important scriptures which are there, like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Manu Samhita, they have been heavily interpolated. And this is not that I'm just concocting this. Even Jiva Goswami talks about it. Even Madhvacharya talks about it, that they are heavily interpolated scriptures. So Ramayana, for example, Ramayana is considered to be one of the very important epics for the Indian society. When Britishers they came to India, and initially their idea was to westernize India. Their idea was to Christianize India. So when they were trying to understand the Indian psyche, I'm missing the name of the person, but he said that if you want to understand he has a very famous quote like that. If you have to understand the Indian psyche, you should understand Ramayana, because Ramayana is such a timeless scripture that it has it has been revered very highly by the Indians. We all know about it. People who are from India, they will understand that Ramayana is. And Ramayana basically tells us the qualities of an ideal human being, which is Lord Ram. So that is a defining question of Ramayana. It starts with that, who is an ideal human being and what are the qualities that ideal human being should have. And there the description of Lord Ram comes over there. So all these scriptures which are important, so people use them for their own benefit. They will interpolate things. They will try to put things that they want people to do. So nowadays I have seen people quoting from Manu Samhita and saying that it is okay to eat meat. And it's a well-known fact where Prabhupada quotes one verse from Manu Samhita that, everyone who is involved in the chain of meat eating, everybody gets sinful reactions. Person who cuts the animal and person who buys the animal. So within that chain, everybody gets equal sinful reactions. And here there are people. I've seen some so-called Brahmins who are into meat eating now. They are quoting from Anusamhita that it's okay to eat meat, and it's even recommended to eat meat. So we have to be careful. We have to understand that we cannot blindly accept. When someone is quoting from these scriptures, we have to be careful before accepting it. We have to understand whether it is in accordance with other scriptures. Prabhupada said that as long as a scripture agrees with Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it's Vedic or non-Vedic, scripture or non-scriptural, whatever it is, as far as it agrees with Srimad Bhagavatam, we accept it, and when it doesn't agree with Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, then we don't accept it. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. So there is a difference between imitating the behavior of great personalities and then following in the footsteps. Following in the footsteps means that we should follow their teachings. So there are teachings of, like for example, people give example of Lord Shiva, that because Lord Shiva had bhang, it is okay for us to have bhang. We can also have bhang. So Acharya explained that Lord Shiva also drank the halahal poison. Can we drink it? Because Lord Shiva, it is said that halahal poison is so poisonous that just by the smell, that's how it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, that when the vapors are coming out, even with those vapors, the Rakshasas started dying over there. People started dying and the animals started dying. So Lord Shiva became compassionate and he came and he drank that halahal poison. He concentrated it, he took it out of the ocean and then he drank it. So we have to actually accept the teachings of Lord Shiva. Teachings of Lord Shiva comes in which canto of Srimad Bhagavatam? Quiz for everyone.
8th canto.
Sorry, Mataji?
8th canto, Prabhuji.
8th canto?
Teachings
Which?
of
Lord Shiva.
4th
Shiva's is in 8th canto, right?
Okay. I know about 4th canto. We have the Rudra Gita in the 24th chapter of 4th canto.
Yes.
That is the
Acheta's
Rudra.
one you are talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I
there,
missed it.
I don't know about, maybe there is something in 8th canto which I am missing now. So 4th canto, 24th chapter is Rudra Gita, and that is the teachings given by Lord Shiva to Prachetas. So Prachetas are going for pleasing Lord Vishnu. They have been ordered by their father Prachin Barahi to marry and create progeny. But before that, they are all devotees and they want to take blessings from Lord Vishnu. So they are going towards the forest to perform austerities to please Lord Vishnu. And when Lord Shiva understands that they are going to please Lord Vishnu, he appears before them and then he instructs them. So he says it that because you're going for a very auspicious, very something that is very much recommended. Therefore, I'm getting visible to you, and I'm going to give you some instructions. So those instructions are really important. Rudra Gita, there it is said. The chanting of the song sung by Lord Shiva, 24th chapter. The king or the executive head of a state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. So this is very important. The king is also a ideal leader, and Prabhupada also used to say that if the head of the state becomes Krishna conscious, then it is easy for us to and it is a well-known fact. We know Christianity spread because the king they are accepted. Christianity spread after almost 1200 years of passing away of Jesus. And that happened. Of course, there were preachers who were trying to give Christian values to people in general. And then this king, I'm missing the name of the king, was a Roman king. And then he used to see that, people within his kingdom, they were not very ideal character. Their behavior character was not very good. And then he noticed that these Christian preachers, they are so nice. I mean, they're following the ideal character. and then he himself accepted Christianity, and after that Christianity became the official religion of Rome, and from Rome it spread all over the world. So once the king, and that is what happened to Ashoka. Ashoka became Buddhist, and that's how Buddhism spread in India. And then Shankaracharya had to come. Lord Shiva had to come as Shankaracharya, and then he had to toil so much to bring back the Vedic tradition, Vedic religion, Vedic scriptures. So when the head of the state becomes, when he accepts something, then it becomes easy for it to spread. So Prabhupada used to say that we have to somehow bring this, and we know that famously he wrote a letter to Gandhi also, and then he kind of warned Gandhi that if you continue like this, your life is in danger. So I'm not going to go into the details, but Mahatma Gandhi didn't pay any attention, and then we know what happened to Mahatma Gandhi. So, and then school teacher also, teachers, they are directly teaching the kids. So the teachers have to be ideal in their behavior, in their teachings, and that is where kids learn from. So, and father. So father also, basically parents. So it is said that the first guru of a child is mother, and then father, and of course there is a second birth that happens. So father and mother are natural gurus for children. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and scriptural codes. So both are important. Moral codes also, sometimes all moral principles are not directly mentioned in the scriptures. They might be indirectly mentioned or shown through the behavior of the different characters in the scriptures, but we may not be able to directly catch it. So moral and scriptural codes, both are important. So I was talking about that even for us, the fact that we have been given Krishna consciousness, it's not something very easy. It's not something that is very cheap. So in many different ways, we are also leaders, or we are also setting examples for the society. When someone sees that, someone is happily doing bhakti, and at the same time he's living in this world like a grahastha, so people naturally become inclined, what is it that that is attracting you? We are doing so much enjoyment, we are going to parties, we are going to restaurants, we are watching movies, and here these guys are there, they don't go to restaurants, they don't watch movies, yet they're happy somehow or the other, they're getting some pleasure, and their life is also good. They have some principles in their life, they don't want to compromise on those principles. So in one way or the other, we are also setting certain examples in the society. So we also have to be careful. We should not think that only the sannyasis who are there, they are setting the examples, or the brahmacharis who are there, they are setting examples. Even we, in many ways, are, we are representing Krishna within the society that we live. So we all have certain circle of influence. For some, it may be hundreds and 500s of people, people who are big managers in different companies, or it may be, it may be that our circle of influence are close friends, maybe 4 or 5 families. So whatever it is, or even if that is not there, at least our children are there, they are watching us, our family members are there, our parents, our brothers and sisters, they also know about our lifestyle, they're also watching us. So we have our own circle of influence. So we also have this responsibility. Prabhupada says that all such natural leaders have a great responsibility. So our responsibility is that we are actually representing Krishna in many ways, and we have to also show that from our own example. So it's very important for us to also follow that. We know, I've heard this from Radharaman Prabhu, that he became a devotee by, anyone remembers? He spoke about it in the lecture. How did he become a devotee?
Beatles.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Beatles. So they are influential people. So Beatles, they have a very big circle of influence, and actually many people became devotees because of Beatles, not just Radharaman Prabhu. I've heard it from one more person.
Not the Beatles. It's George Harrison.
George Harrison.
George
Yes.
Harrison, yeah,
That's right.
In particular, yeah.
In particular.
And it was King Constantine that became
King Constantine. Yes, thank you so much, Mataji.
Yeah, because I'm a history major, but I didn't want to. And also another example is Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest Muslim country. Practically all the population is Muslim. It's because the king of Indonesia converted to Islam, because everything there, even the airlines is Garuda. Every street is named after Hindu gods and,
Hindu
you know,
gods,
like
yeah.
not like, not you know what I'm talking about.
Right,
All their
right.
street names and everything is all with the background is all Hindu thing. But
That's true.
because the king converted, now the entire country of Indonesia is Muslim.
Yeah. Indonesia has a very sizable Hindu population also. And what I've heard about Indonesia is that the Muslims there are not like the Muslims in Pakistan or Bangladesh, where they're, you know, violently against other religions. We know in Pakistan and Bangladesh, there are so many terrorist attacks that happen on Christians, Hindus. You know, our ISKCON temples in Bangladesh have been attacked so many times, and people were killed over there by these Muslim mobs. But what I've heard in Indonesia, it's not that.
Yeah, they
not that bad.
even have plays of Ramayana. They enact
Yeah.
Ramayana all the time.
In Indonesia, ISKCON is also doing very good now. I've seen many devotees coming from Indonesia. I see them online doing different kinds of programs, preaching, etc. So that's nice. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was talking about. Yeah, Beatles, George Harrison. So I was intrigued, you know, how could someone become a devotee by a singer, you know? So, but then he explained that he was a big fan, and then he went to a library and he started, you know, seeing. I think he started reading about it, and then that's how he came in contact with Krishna conscious literature. And then initially he thought that I just read it, I will not be influenced with it. But then Prabhupada's words are so pure, so hard hitting, so perfect that once you read it, you know, there will be some transformation that will happen. So I believe that's how he became a devotee. And there are other devotees also who came through George Harrison. So it is very important, you know, we don't know how we are giving inspiration to others. We don't know how people are looking at us. You know, secretly they might be looking at us, they might be admiring our lifestyle, they might be taking inspirations, guidance from our behavior. So we have a responsibility also. So all of us, not, you know, we can't say that a new devotee, you know, he's just a neophyte. We can't say like that. Even a person who is newly coming to Krishna consciousness, they also have to, you know, feel this responsibility that they are representing Krishna in many ways to others. So I just take a pause and see if there are any questions or comments or corrections about what I said. I wanted to do 2 more verses because this comes in the same sequence, but I don't think I'll be able to do it. 2 more verses. Any other questions, comments, corrections?
Prabhuji, did Mahatma Gandhi got those letters of Prabhupada?
We don't know, Mataji. I don't think it is mentioned anywhere that if Mahatma Gandhi actually got those like letters or not, or he just ignored the letter. So there is no mention of that, I believe, anywhere. Maybe Pyari Prabhu would know if I'm speaking something wrong.
Prabhupada did write the letters, but nobody knows whether he got them, because at that point the secretaries were, you know, replying. He was not personally going through his mail. So it's possible that he never got the letters or people didn't forward it to him. But Prabhupada did write the letter.
Yeah, I am not sure like 100%, but I think I have read in Lilamrita that he did not get, but I am not 100% confident.
Yeah, maybe he did not, because other people were intercepting his mail. So it
But
was
Jiva
not good.
Mataji read the letter. Remember in Ishopanishad's lectures when she was giving, she read the letter.
No, he did write the letter. He warned him about not to go, and he went to that prayer meeting and he got shot in the process. But whether he actually received the letter and read the instructions is not known, because at that point he was not answering his mail directly. Other people were intercepting his mail. So maybe it never got to him.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments or corrections, and I'll just like to add one more point, but I just want to see if there
The
is.
one little small detail, it's not big deal, but in Indonesia, Lord Ganesha is on their currency. And
Yeah.
how it happened was they were trying to, like, the economy was tanking and everybody was saying, then somebody suggested do that and it's going to come up. And they said, we have tried everything else, so why not do that also? And so they did it. And actually their currency came up and they got saved from an economic disaster. So now permanently Lord Ganesh is on their currency also. That's what I heard. I've not seen Indonesian currency, but a devotee of high standing has said this. So I believe the devotees, so I'm thinking that that's true.
We can Google it, Mataji. Google Acharya. So, yeah, but sounds right to me. That's interesting. Okay, so I just want to add one more point. So in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, so there are 4 chapters that describe the Ras Leela Adhyay. So after this, hearing this Ras Leela, we know that Parikshit Maharaj becomes a little bewildered, and he is a devotee himself. He understands Krishna's position and Krishna's activities, but then there are so many people who are there in that assembly, and he could see, that's how Acharya explained, that when he asked that question, he could see that people are visibly, some of them are a little disgusted about after hearing Ras Leela, because Krishna apparently is dancing with other men's wives. So he asked this question directly to Parikshit Maharaj. He asked this question to Shukdev Goswami. Shukdev Goswami is the authority. Everybody has accepted Shukdev Goswami as the most exalted person who is fit to give the instructions to Parikshit Maharaj, because initially Parikshit Maharaj's question was, what is the duty of a person who is about to die in 7 days? So what is the duty of a dying man? And there is a discussion that who should speak. So, and when Parikshit Maharaj, when Shukdev Goswami comes in the assembly, it was like nobody contested that. Everybody accepted that he is the ultimate authority. He should speak to Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj, he wanted it to come from the mouth of Shukdev Goswami, the actual position of Krishna. So he asked this question. He says Krishna is actually the perceptor, he is the protector, and he is the propagator of religious principles. Perceptor, propagator, and the protector. Then how could he have done something immoral? How could he actually violate the codes of scriptures, violate the codes of moral principles by touching other men's wives? Because there could not be any better Shrestha than Krishna himself. Because this verse talks about Shrestha, and sometimes people take this verse and say that Krishna himself is saying that, whatever action a great man perform, common men follow. Then how could he have done that? And that's how people actually ask this question. And here Parikshit Maharaj himself is asking this question to Shukdev Goswami. And Shukdev Goswami gives a fantastic reply. He gives a reply at many different levels. So he says that actually, the fact that Krishna, Krishna is beyond moral principles. He is beyond all scriptural injunctions. That is first point he mentions. And then he talks about, I'll just read this here. He says the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them, for they are just like fire which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. One who is not a great controller should never imitate the behavior of ruling personalities, even mentally. If out of foolishness an ordinary person does imitate such behavior, he will simply destroy himself. Just as a person who is not Rudra would destroy himself if he tried to drink an ocean of poison. So this is very hard-hitting verse. People sometimes say that we are following Lord Shiva, and because Lord Shiva did it. That's why we are doing it. So he is telling it very clearly that a person who foolishly drinks poison, thinking that Lord Shiva has did it, so I can also do it. He will destroy himself. So he says the statements of the Lord's empowered servants are always true, and the acts they perform are exemplary when consistent with those statements. Therefore, one who is intelligent should carry out their instructions. So that's how he answers it. And Acharyas have also answered it very clearly. So people's allegation is that Krishna is stealing butter, he is dancing with the wives of other people. Now, what kind of a person he is, what kind of a god he is, what kind of a Shrestha he is. So Acharyas explain that the Vrindavan Krishna is not a Shrestha. Vrindavan Krishna is just a little boy. He is just 5 years, 6 years, and less than actually 10 years old. And after that, he leaves Vrindavan, we know that, and he goes to Mathura, and from there he goes to Dwarka. So in Vrindavan, he's just a small little cowherd boy. Who would want to follow a cowherd boy? Who would want to see a cowherd boy as an example? So there, Krishna is not a Shreshti. He is not setting any example. He is not teaching anything. He's just as he's just at his home, and he's just enjoying with his devotees over there. So, but after Krishna leaves Vrindavan, after he assumes the position in the royal assembly, and after that, his acts are really exemplary. We know that Krishna, when Narad Muni comes to visit him in Dwarka, so Krishna had 16,108 queens, and he expanded himself in 16,108 forms, and he is simultaneously living in 16,108 palaces. So in the morning, although the wives of Krishna wouldn't want him to get up, Krishna would still get up early in the morning. He will do his morning sadhana, he will do his morning arti, everything he will do, meditation on himself. And then he would simultaneously start from all the palaces, and then he'll come out and merge into one Krishna, and then he'll go to the assembly. He will do everything that is necessary in the assembly. He will also apparently very interestingly, for the different matters that are discussed in the assembly, he will ask the opinion of others. He will ask opinion of Uddhava. Uddhava is considered to be very learned, and Uddhava also would also get a little astonished. Krishna is God. He's asking my opinion. Why is he asking my opinion? We pray to God that you please tell us what to. You guide us. You show us the way. And here God is asking Uddhava. So the idea is that he is setting the example that that is how a ruler should be. Ruler should actually consult with the learned men before making any decisions, before taking any actions. There's a council of Brahmins which used to be there earlier, and the kings used to take their advice on important matters. So Krishna is doing everything that he even washes the feet of Sudama. It's so amazing, that pastime. Krishna is the supreme person. He got the Agra Puja in the Rajasuya sacrifice, and there were personalities like Lord Shiva also present, and nobody, everybody accepted unanimously that Krishna is supposed to get the Agra Puja in the Rajasuya sacrifice. Yet, when Sudama visits him in his palace, he washes his feet. It's such a amazing, because Sudama is considered to be a Brahmin, and Krishna is playing the role of a Kshatriya king. So Kshatriyas are generally considered to be subordinate. They should respect Brahmins. So when Sudama comes there, he actually makes him sit on his own bed and then washes his feet. So Krishna of Vrindavan, Acharyas explained that in Vrindavan, he is not setting an example. He is not a Shreshti. But the Dwarka Krishna is actually a Shreshti, and all his actions are very exemplary after he leaves Vrindavan. So we have to understand it in this way. So I'll stop here and see if there are any other questions, comments, or corrections about what I said. Excuse me. Okay, no questions, no comments.
How old was Krishna when he did the Rasa Leela pastimes?
I believe 8 years, Mataji. That's what I think Prabhupada writes.
8 years, really?
In the Krishna book, I believe Prabhupada writes it. He was just 8 year, 7 year or 8 year. That's what Prabhupada writes, if I'm not wrong.
7 years is when he lifted the Govardhan hill.
Yeah, right after Govardhan hill. So 28th or 29th chapter is, 1 second, I tell you which chapter it is. 30, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. I think these are the Rasa Leela chapters. Yeah, so 25th chapter is Govardhan hill. 27th chapter is when Indra comes with Mother Surbi to offer prayers. And then 29th chapter, 27th, just after that, 29th chapter is the Rasa dance. So that pastime happens. Yeah, right after that Govardhan Leela pastime. On that same night, he rescues Nanda Maharaj, I believe, from the abode of Varuna. That is the 28th chapter, and 29th chapter is the Rasa dance. 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. 5 Panchadhyaya, Rasa Panchadhyaya. That's how it is said. And after that, immediately after that, almost he leaves Vrindavan. Yeah, 38th chapter is when Akrura arrives. So not immediately, but yeah, few months maybe after that he leaves Vrindavan. So I think Prabhupada writes that in the Krishna book. He was just 8 years old. So Prabhupada also uses this 8-year-old boy cannot have any lust. You know, that's how Prabhupada explains that there is nothing immoral over there that is happening. It's all the devotee and the Lord. Of course, there are multiple levels of explanations that Acharyas have given about this, but Prabhupada also talks about it a little bit.
And I posted the Indonesian Rupaya in the chat. It does have Ganesha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Shyamanand Prabhu had said it, so I thought Shyamanand Prabhu is, so high in the, I thought he wouldn't say something that's not. So based on his, see, that's going to say, when somebody of high standing says it, you immediately believe it, even though you have not seen it yourself. So that's why I was able to believe it, even though I have not seen it myself. So that's again proof, like when someone of high, that's someone we look up to, we actually believe them.
And I see a message from Sundari Ratika Mataji. She said 5. I don't know for which particular thing she said 5.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Prabhuji, it was for your question. Which canto had Lord Shiva Rudra Gita?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
The answer was canto 5.
Yeah, but actually, I was talking about 4th canto because there's Rudra Gita that comes over there. Maybe there's something in the 5th canto which I am not aware, or I don't remember. I mean, I have read 5th canto, but I don't remember. All right. So if there are no other questions or comments, we can stop here. Okay, and offer obeisances to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhyabhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
His Grace Ganpati Govind Prabhu ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna.